Let's see flow control methods. Flow control means if there is a sender and a receiver, sender will keep on sending the packets and the receiver will be receiving it. But the problem is sometimes the receiver's processor could be slow, that even if you are sending data, the receiver will not be able to consume the data, at the rate at which the sender is producing it. Then what happens is, let us say this is the buffer available at the receiver. Then you are going to send packet number 1, packet number 2, packet number 3, packet number 4. All the packets are being sent. Now the buffer is completely full. Now if you send one more packet, packet number 5, there is no place for it to accommodate it, therefore it will be discarded. 6 will be discarded, 7 will be discarded, which means you should not send the packets at such a high rate that the receiver is not able to handle them. You should only send the packets at a rate that the receiver could receive them, right? Which means you should always send the packets in such a way that receiver will be able to receive them and process them, right? So flow control methods allow us so in such a way that sender will always follow the receiver. It is also called as closed loop protocol, which means sender will send the packets only if the receiver is in a position to receive it. So simplest flow control method is, the simplest one is this. You send packet number 1 and now packet number 1 will be received, and once the packet number 1 is consumed, then let it ask for the packet number 2. Let it say that yes, I received the packet number 1, and then you send the packet number 2. Then you will send the packet number 2, it will receive the packet number 2 and will say that I have received the packet number 2, and only then you send the packet number 3, which means what should sender do is, it should send one packet and then stop and wait until the receiver says that I am done, you can send the next packet. This is called stop and wait. So stop and wait is the simplest flow control mechanism in which sender will send one packet and then stops and waits for the receiver to acknowledge, then only it will send the second packet. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of stop and wait is, it is very simple to implement. And what is the disadvantages, I will show you using a timeline diagram. So I am going to use this diagram throughout. This is the timeline. Okay, this is the sender at the sender side and at the receiver side. Let us assume that time is going to start at 0 and the time is going to increase down the lane. Okay, and now say you have started transmitting the packet, sender has started transmitting packet at this time and it transmitted the data till this point. This is nothing but TT, transmission time or transmission delay. Now whenever you start transmitting the first byte, after some time the packet will be received by the first byte will be received by the destination and the last byte will be received by the destination, right? This entire time is again TT only, but if you take this time is nothing but the time taken by the last bit to reach from one end of the wire to other end of the wire. It is nothing but TP. Okay, zoom in, and now after the packet has been received by the destination, now the destination is going to wait for some time, which is called queuing delay. There will be queuing delay and processing delay, but then for the sake of simplicity we are not taking it. Maybe even if you take it, it is going to be 0, right? So let's say there is something called as queuing delay, TQ, and then there is something called as processing delay, T process. Okay, and after that what the receiver will do is, receiver will consume the data and the consumption is over, then the receiver will start transmitting the acknowledgement. Now this is nothing but transmission TT for acknowledgement. Acknowledgement will be transmitted. Now the acknowledgement will reach the other side, and again this delay is nothing but TP. Okay, so if you look at the total delay total delay at one side or the other side. The total delay is starting from this point Tt in order to transmit the data plus Tp for propagating the data, and then queuing delay and processing delay, and again one more Tt. Why is this Tt? This Tt is for acknowledgement. Tt is for acknowledgement, and then again the acknowledgement has to come from the other side to this side, therefore Tp. So total time taken if you are using stop and wait in order to send one packet. In this total time we are sending only one packet. One packet is being sent and the acknowledgement is going to be coming back to you. So this is the total cycle time taken to send one packet. If you have to send the second packet, again you have to repeat the entire procedure starting from where you left it, right? So what is happening is the total time taken to send just one packet is Tt, and this Tt is for data, plus Tp, this is the propagation time, plus Tq, queuing delay, plus T processing delay, which means the receiver will examine who is the sender and he will appropriately prepare the acknowledgement, and then Tt for acknowledgement, and then propagation delay for acknowledgement. Now in this we don't know what the queuing delay is, therefore just make it 0, and we don't know how much will be the processing delay. These are all practical values, we don't have any theoretical formula, that is why I am making them as 0, or assume that these values are 0, right? And now what are remaining? This Tt and Tp and Tp. If you observe this Tp and Tp, this Tp is for the data and this Tp is for the acknowledgement. Now will they be same or different? Will the propagation delay be same for data and acknowledgement? It is. The propagation delay is same either if the data it is data packet or acknowledgement. The reason is whether it is data packet or acknowledgement, we are just simply sending one packet, isn't it? And the propagation delay depends on the last bit's time, which means one bit. Either that bit is present in the data or in the acknowledgement, propagation delay is going to be same. Therefore Tp is going to be same either it is for the data or acknowledgement. So total time is nothing but transmission time for the data plus 2 into Tp plus transmission time for the acknowledgement. And now in most of the cases, generally acknowledgement size will be very small compared to the data size, which means if the transmission delay for data is in seconds, then the transmission delay for acknowledgements you will get in microseconds, which means the transmission delay for acknowledgement will be very negligible. In that case, if the acknowledgement size is negligible, you can make it 0, right? So in case if the acknowledgement size is negligible, I am trying to have it as 0, but in some cases sometimes we use something called as piggybacking. Piggybacking means we are going to send the acknowledgement on the data packet which is coming from the other side. Therefore then the acknowledgement transmission time will be equal to the data packet's transmission time. So in that case where the acknowledgement transmission time is equal to data packet's transmission time, we are going to have this acknowledgement transmission time as equal to transmission time for data. But in most of the problems in computer networks, acknowledgement size is negligible. So you could either take it as 0, that depends on the question really. Now what is remaining then? Total time is Tt plus 2 into Tp. This is the total time taken to send one packet, right? So simply put, you can understand it this way. We are transmitting a packet. This is sender is going to send the packet, and then the packet is going to be propagated, and then this, which means the sender is going to transmit the packet and then stop at this point and wait for the acknowledgement, isn't it? The last bit of the packet is moving and then the acknowledgement is coming. This entire time is nothing but stop and wait. So you transmit the packet and then stop and wait. So because of this stopping and waiting, there is inefficiency, isn't it? I could have sent even more packets in this gap, but then I am forcefully stopping. That is why it is all inefficiency, which means we are actually using this Tt time efficiently and then we are waiting for this time completely. That is inefficiency, right? So if I want to find out the efficiency, always remember efficiency is equal to useful time in all the protocols. Efficiency is equal to useful time upon total cycle time. Total cycle time. Now what is useful time here? So useful time is Tt upon, what is the total cycle time? Tt plus 2 into Tp. Now if you want to find out the efficiency, this is the formula that we should use. Just to simplify it, I am going to divide numerator and denominator with Tt. Then what I get is 1 upon 1 plus 2 into Tp by Tt. Dividing numerator and denominator with Tt, that equal to 1 upon 1 plus 2a, where a is Tp by Tt. So I am using a just for the sake of simplicity, where a is nothing but Tp upon Tt. So this is the formula for efficiency. Therefore, in case of stop and wait, efficiency of the stop and wait protocol is 1 upon 1 plus 2a. Now, once we have seen the efficiency, what is the throughput that we are achieving? Throughput means, generally in case of operating system also we talk about throughput. In operating system, the throughput is number of processes that we finish per 1 second, and in case of CO, computer organization, again we talk about throughput. In CO, the throughput is number of instructions that are executed per second, right? And in case of computer networks, the throughput is nothing but number of bits that we are actually able to send per second. Therefore, throughput is equal to, I'll just derive it. Throughput equal to how many bits am I able to send per second using this protocol. So if you look at this, in a total time of Tt plus 2 into Tp, I am able to send only one packet, right? So I am able to send L bits in a total time of Tt plus 2 into Tp. Sometimes throughput is also called as effective bandwidth or bandwidth utilization. So throughput has various names: effective bandwidth or bandwidth utilization or throughput. It is nothing but number of bits that we are sending per second. In a total time of Tt plus 2 into Tp, I am able to send L bits. Therefore, total throughput is L upon Tt plus 2 into Tp, right? Now, I'll just convert this, apply some conversions. I'll multiply this with bandwidth and divide it with bandwidth. Then what is it? L by B. L by B is nothing but Tt, isn't it? Transmission time. So in place of L by B, I am writing Tt divided by Tt plus 2 into Tp into bandwidth. I am writing bandwidth separately. Now you divide numerator and denominator using Tt. Then what do I get? 1 upon 1 plus 2a into bandwidth. So this is nothing but efficiency, right? Therefore, throughput is efficiency into bandwidth. So effective bandwidth or throughput or bandwidth utilization, it is always going to be efficiency into bandwidth. So these are the two important formulas coming to this stop and wait. One is what is the efficiency? Efficiency is 1 upon 1 plus 2a, and second is what is throughput? Throughput is efficiency into bandwidth. Therefore, in order to find out the throughput or bandwidth utilization, you have to first find out the efficiency and then multiply with bandwidth. We shall see some problems on this now, on all these concepts. Let's see some problems on it. So one thing is, you know how to calculate the Tt. So in exams they might give you length of the packet, size of the packet, and then the bandwidth, and then you can derive it. And other thing is, you know how to calculate Tp. One is distance will be given and velocity will be given. Depending on that, you can derive the propagation delay. Now you know how to derive these two things, okay? So I am directly giving you the values of Tt and Tp, so that we can substitute in the formulas and find out the efficiency and utilization. Let us say the question is given in such a way that if you calculate TT, you got 1 millisecond, and if you calculate TP, you got 1 millisecond. Now the question is, what is efficiency? Okay, given that TT equal to TP equal to 1 millisecond, efficiency is what? Efficiency is 1 upon 1 plus 2a, right? So what is 1 upon 1 plus 2a? 1 upon 1 plus 2 into TP by TT, which is 1 by 1, which is nothing but 1 by 3. Efficiency is 1/3, right? So what do you understand from this efficiency is 1/3 is, even though we have 3 parts, we are using only 1 part. How to explain this is this way. The question is saying that TT is 1 millisecond, which means TT is 1 millisecond, okay, and TP is 1 millisecond, which means one TP is 1 millisecond and other TP is 1 millisecond. Therefore the total wait time is 2 millisecond. Out of these 3 milliseconds, I am able to use only one part. That is, the efficiency is 1 upon 3, right? Sometimes there is something called as round trip time. Round trip time is 2 into TP. Okay, so this entire thing is round trip time. So what is happening is, we are transmitting one packet and we are waiting for one round trip time for the packet to come back. In case, let us assume that TT equal to 2 milliseconds and TP equal to 1 millisecond. If this is what is given, then what is the efficiency? Again, efficiency is same, right? Efficiency is 1 upon 1 plus 2a, that equal to 1 upon 1 plus 2 into TP by TT. What is TP? 1 by TP. TT is 2, that equal to 1 by 2, which is 50% efficiency. So why did you get this 50% efficiency is, you can observe this in this timeline. Now transmission delay is 2 milliseconds, TT is 2 milliseconds, and now propagation delay is 1 millisecond, 1 millisecond, and then one more propagation delay is 1 millisecond. Therefore in the total time of 4 milliseconds, I am able to use 2 milliseconds. That is why half of the time I am able to utilize it. Therefore the efficiency is 50%. That is the meaning of it, right? Now sometimes they will ask you, if the efficiency has to be at least 50%, then what is the relationship between TT and TP? So if the efficiency has to be at least 50%, which means if efficiency has to be at least this much, efficiency should be greater than or equal to 0.5, then what should be the relationship between TT and TP? So what is efficiency? Efficiency is TT upon TT plus 2 into TP. This entire value has to be greater than or equal to 1 by 2, isn't it? That implies 2 into TT has to be greater than or equal to TT plus 2 into TP, which means TT has to be greater than or equal to 2 into TP. So if this happens, then the efficiency is more than 50%. Why is this so? Because if we are transmitting for at least twice the propagation delay, obviously the efficiency is going to be more, right? So see, what do they mean is, if your transmission delay is equal to 2 into TT, this much, which means if these two delays are equal, then we can say that almost half of the time we are transmitting, therefore efficiency is 50%, right? And in case if this transmission delay is greater, then the efficiency will be more than 50%. It all depends on the transmission time. If we increase the transmission time, then the efficiency is going to be increased, right? Now what should we do in order to increase the transmission time? In order to increase the transmission time, we have to increase the size of the packet, the length of the data, which means here transmission time is nothing but L by B. L by B is greater than or equal to 2 into TP, which means L has to be greater than or equal to 2 into TP into bandwidth. So if the length of the packet is at least 2 into TP into bandwidth, you can say that we will get at least 50% efficiency. Let's see an example. If it is given that bandwidth is if it is given that bandwidth is 4 Mbps and propagation delay is let's say 1 millisecond, then what is the length of the packet so that efficiency is at least 50%? Then the length of the packet has to be greater than or equal to 2 into Tp into bandwidth. That implies, what is it? 2 into what is Tp? 10 power minus 3 into bandwidth is 4 Mbps. 4 Mbps means 10 power 6. So that implies it is greater than or equal to 8 into 10 power 3 bits, right? So the length of the packet should be at least 8000 bits so that we get the efficiency of 50%. So these are some of the questions possible on this, possible on the stop and wait. But then there are some disadvantages too about this stop and wait. One thing is, you are observing that the efficiency is not very high, and the efficiency is decreasing with some factors. Let us see what are the factors that really affect the efficiency. And one thing is, once you have computed the efficiency, you can even compute the throughput. So throughput is nothing but efficiency into bandwidth. So let's consider this case where the efficiency is 50%. If efficiency is 50% and bandwidth is 4 Mbps, then what is effective bandwidth? Effective bandwidth is nothing but efficiency into bandwidth. Either effective bandwidth or bandwidth utilization or throughput, everything is efficiency into bandwidth. Now what is efficiency into bandwidth? 1 by 2 into bandwidth is 4 Mbps, which is nothing but 2 Mbps. So why do you think that we got this 2 Mbps? The reason why we got this 2 Mbps is, efficiency is saying that we are using only half of the time and for transmitting, isn't it? So efficiency says how much amount of time are we using in the total time for transmitting. Even though you could transmit 4 Mbps given the entire time, but since we are transmitting it only for the half of the time, efficiency is half of it. That bandwidth, effective bandwidth is half of it, which means even though the bandwidth is 4 Mbps, effectively you are replacing it to be 2 Mbps. The reason is, half of the time we are transmitting and half of the time we are waiting. Because of the waiting time, we are going to get less bandwidth. That is why effective bandwidth is less. Let's see the factors which affect efficiency. Now if you look at the formula of efficiency, it is 1 upon 1 plus 2a, and it is 1 upon 1 plus 2 into Tp by Tt, right? And you know that 1 upon 1 plus 2 into Tp is d by v into Tt is, actually Tt is L by B, but here you can write it as B by L, right? Therefore efficiency formula is this. Efficiency formula is 1 upon 1 plus 2 into d by v into b by L, right? Now if you look at how it is related to each of them, first thing is, velocity is fixed. You cannot change the velocity, you cannot increase the velocity or decrease the velocity of a signal inside a medium. That is going to be constant. And second thing is, whenever you buy any link, the bandwidth is going to be fixed. So after buying a link and setting up a network, we cannot do much about the bandwidth. Therefore, assuming that velocity and bandwidth are the properties of the medium and which are fixed, we are not going to talk about them. Now what is the relationship between efficiency and distance? If the distance of the network D increases, if the distance increases, this entire denominator increases. If this entire denominator increases, efficiency decreases. Understand this? If the distance increases, the entire denominator increases. If the denominator increases, efficiency decreases, which means efficiency is inversely proportional to, not inversely, now you can say this way, if the distance increases, distance of the link increases, efficiency of the stop and wait decreases. Therefore, stop and wait is more optimal for the networks whose distance is less, which means stop and wait is better to be applied for LANs. So stop and wait gives better optimality for LANs. It is good for LANs. and it is not so good for wide area networks. Okay, and next one is, look at the efficiency and length. If I increase the size of the packet L, then the entire denominator decreases, therefore efficiency increases, which means if the length of the packet increases, then the efficiency is going to increase. If the length of the packet increases, efficiency is going to increase. The reason is, if I send bigger packets, the transmission time will be more, therefore efficiency is going to be more. Therefore, stop and wait is good for big packets and it is not good for small packets, right? So if the data is very huge for the bursty data or big packets, stop and wait is going to give better optimization. So stop and wait has to be used in case of LANs and in case of bigger packets. So that is the analysis on this efficiency. Alright. So stop and wait cannot be used in all the networks. It is better only for LANs. Some problems in stop and wait are like this. Let's say there is sender, this is the sender side and this is receiver side and this is the timeline. Now sender is sending the data and the receiver will send the acknowledgement, and after this we are going to again send the data. So let us say this is data and this is the acknowledgement, right? So whenever sender sends the data, after sending the data, the protocol says that sender has to stop and wait until it receives the acknowledgement from the receiver, and once it receives the acknowledgement, then it can send the data. So because of this protocol, the problem is, let us say you are sending the next packet, data packet, and the data packet is lost. Then what happens? If the data packet is lost, sender will think that receiver has received the data and the receiver is busy, in the sense its buffer is full, and that is why receiver is not sending back the acknowledgement. That is what sender will think. According to the sender, receiver is busy, and what will receiver think? Receiver doesn't know that sender has sent a packet at all. So sender will be waiting for the acknowledgement and receiver will be waiting for the data, and both of them will go into deadlock, isn't it? It is like this. You and your friend have quarreled, and now you are not saying sorry and she is also not saying the sorry. Then what happens? Deadlock between you both. Then how could you break it? So best way is you wait for some time, and if the other person doesn't say sorry, it is better that you say sorry, right? Similarly here also, now what you should do is wait for some time. This is called timer. In fact, timeout timer. This is also called as timeout timer. So have a timer called timeout timer, and now after sending the data packet, you wait for some time. Within this time, if you don't get back the reply from the other side, you can assume that the data is lost and you say sorry, which is nothing but you again retransmit the data. Okay, and now you are going to get the acknowledgement and entire procedure can be happening. Therefore, already we have stop and wait protocol. To this stop and wait, I am adding timeout timer. This is also called as stop and wait ARQ, automatic repeat request. Automatic repeat request means queue is nothing but request. So automatically, if you don't get the acknowledgement, you are going to repeat it, right? So it is also called as automatic repeat request. To stop and wait, we are adding this timeout timer so that we can correct the packets the loss. This problem is also called as data packet is lost, isn't it? Why did we get this problem? Because data packet is lost, and because of which, what is the problem? Because of which there is a deadlock. And how could you correct the deadlock? We could correct the deadlock by adding timeout to the stop and wait, and so it is also called as stop and wait ARQ, automatic repeat request, right? And next problem is acknowledgement could be lost, which means, see this, now the sender is here, receiver is here, this is the timeline. Now sender is sending some data and receiver is sending the acknowledgement, and suddenly acknowledgement is lost. Then what happens at the sender side? As we said, sender is going to have something called as timeout timer, isn't it? This is the timeout timer, and after the timeout timer expires, sender will think that data is lost, because that is the safest assumption, right? either the data is lost or acknowledgement is lost, it is safe for you to assume that data is lost. Otherwise, if you always assume that acknowledgement is lost, you are never going to retransmit the packet even if data is lost. Therefore, the safest assumption is sender will assume that data is lost, and because of which he is going to retransmit the same data. Previously, whatever data was sent, he is going to send the same data. Now, according to the receiver, he received the first data packet and he has acknowledged it. And according to receiver, this second data packet is a different data packet compared to the first one, which means according to the sender, both the data packets are same, but according to the receiver, both the data packets are different. So receiver will think that this is data packet number 1 and this is data packet number 2, and he will again accept it, process it as if this is a new packet. So this is also called as duplicate packet problem. The reason is the receiver is accepting the duplicate packet as a new packet. This problem is called duplicate packet problem. Now, how could we solve this duplicate packet problem is, instead of sending the plain data, you have some numbers on the data packets, which means in case if you have some number as D1 here, and if you are again repeating the packet as D1, then the receiver will understand that, oh, acknowledgement might have lost, and that is why he is sending the data packet second time. So in order to eliminate this duplicate packet problem, you have to add sequence numbers to the data, which means stop and wait is already added timeout, to which we are going to add sequence numbers to the data. So once you add the sequence numbers to data, using this we can easily say, once we have this sequence numbers, using which we can easily say that this is a duplicate packet. And next one is, so one is data packet is lost, other is acknowledgement is lost. Now the acknowledgement is delayed acknowledgement, which means we are sending the acknowledgement but then it is delayed. I'll explain. You see this, let us say data packet D1 is being sent with the packet number also D1, and now the acknowledgement is being transmitted, but the acknowledgement is late. It is not lost, but it is late. Then there will be timeout in the sender side, and in this timeout he is again going to retransmit the same packet D1. See, in this previous case also, whenever you get the duplicate packet, other side will still be waiting for the acknowledgement for this. So even if you get the duplicate packet, then also you are supposed to send the acknowledgement, otherwise there will be a deadlock. You can discard this packet saying that it is duplicate packet, fine, but still you are supposed to send the acknowledgement so that the other side will not wait for the acknowledgement forever. Okay, now see this, here D1 is sent once and the acknowledgement is on the way, but we didn't receive it, therefore there is a timeout, and again we are sending the same packet D1, which is a duplicate packet, therefore receiver is going to discard the packet completely, fine, and he is also going to send the acknowledgement. Even though the packet is discarded, you are supposed to send the acknowledgement because the other side will be waiting for the acknowledgement, right? And now the other side is sending the second packet D2 and waiting for the acknowledgement for the second packet in this timeout, and now the second packet is lost, but the previous acknowledgement which was late, that acknowledgement arrived now. At this point the acknowledgement arrived, right? So now by seeing this acknowledgement, receiver will think that, the sender will think that I have sent the data packet 2 and I got the acknowledgement, and now he will send the data packet 3. According to the sender, the data packet 2 has been sent and acknowledged, but according to the receiver, data packet 2 is never sent. So this leads to a problem called missing packets problem. By the packet D1 is completely, the packet D2 is completely gone missing. According to the sender, it is sent and acknowledged. According to the receiver, they have never sent it. Then how could we make sure that this problem will be solved? So we could solve this problem if we have the numbers on the acknowledgements too. So along with the data packet numbers on the acknowledgements also, if we have the acknowledgement numbers, then it is going to solve the problem. How is it is? See this. Now sender is going to send the data packet D1, Sender is going to send the data packet D1 and receiver is going to send the acknowledgement, but instead of sending the pure acknowledgement, I mean only the acknowledgement, he is also going to put some number on the acknowledgement now. Since we have received the data packet D1, acknowledgement number will be A2. It indicates that I have received the packet 1 and I am expecting the packet number 2 from you. Always the acknowledgement numbers are going to be +1, which means whatever packet we got now, we are going to add one more and then we are going to ask for the next packet. Now let us assume that this packet A2, this acknowledgement number A2 is still on the way and we didn't receive it. Acknowledgement number A2 is on the way and we didn't receive it, and there is a timeout. In this timeout, you have again sent the data packet D1 and you got the acknowledgement number A2 again, and now you are sending the data packet D2. Now what is the acknowledgement number you are expecting for D2? You are expecting the acknowledgement number A3, but what is the acknowledgement that has come to you? The acknowledgement that came to you is A2. We are expecting A3 but we got A2, therefore you will discard it and you will wait for acknowledgement A3 so you can find out if D2 is missing or not. So how did we solve this delayed acknowledgement problem is, to the stop and wait we have already added timeout and then sequence number to the data packet. Now we are again going to add sequence number to the acknowledgement packets also. We solved it by adding the sequence number to acknowledgement packets also, right? Therefore by using stop and wait plus timeout timer plus sequence numbers to data as well as acknowledgement packets, we solved all the problems. So this is about stop and wait. We shall see how to increase the efficiency of stop and wait next. Let's consider a problem here. Let us say using stop and wait protocol, we want to send 10 packets from source to destination, and now out of which every 4th packet is lost. So we are trying to send 10 packets, out of which every 4th packet is lost from source to destination. Then how many packets are we going to send totally? So in order to see this, first we are going to send 10 packets, right? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 packets, out of which every 4th packet is lost. So first loss is at this point, right? So when this packet is lost, we are going to again retransmit it. Yes, 4. Now 4th packet is lost, so again it is retransmitted. Again you have to count from this 4. So because this 4 is also being transmitted, and the question is, among all the transmitted packets every 4th packet is lost. Therefore next loss is not 8. 1 2 3 4. Next loss is here 7, which means 7 is again lost, right? So again you have to count from 7. 1 2 3 4, which means 10 will be again retransmitted. Therefore totally number of packets that will be transmitted is 13. And what are the packets that are retransmitted? 4 7 and 10. These are the packets that are retransmitted. Now let's consider one more example. Say there is a sender and there is a receiver, and this channel is having some error probability. Error probability means some of the packets are getting lost. Not exactly packets, bits or anything. There is something is going wrong in this channel, because of which some of the packets are being lost. Let us say the error probability of this channel is 0.2, which means 20%. If I am sending 100 packets, 20 packets are definitely going to be lost. Okay, so now if I send, let us say 400 packets on this link in which the error probability is 0.2, then how many packets have to be transmitted in total? So one thing you understood is the loss probability is 20%, which means out of every 100, 20 will be lost, and therefore they have to be retransmitted. Then what is it? I am sending 400, then out of 400, 20% will be lost, right? So which means it is going to be 80. So you might say that 400 are transmitted and 80 packets are again retransmitted, because out of 400 80 packets are lost, therefore total number of packets that are sent is 480. But you have to observe one thing: when I am sending 400 packets, 80 packets are lost. When I am sending the next 80 packets, again in that 80 packets 20% will be lost, right? So you have to even take this factor into consideration, so on. Which means if I am sending n packets over a channel which has the error probability of p, then I have to send np packets, because out of np packets will be lost. Again I have to retransmit np packets, plus when I am sending np packets, again I have to send np square. Why? Because out of np packets, again np square packets will be lost. Therefore I will retransmit again np square plus np cube. From np square I get np cube lost packets, plus so on. This is infinite GP, right? So it is n into 1 plus p square plus p cube plus so on. So it is infinite GP n into a by 1 minus r. So these many packets are sent totally. Therefore, if I am sending n packets over a channel whose error probability is p, then the total number of transmissions is n into 1 upon 1 minus p. This is in the case of stop and wait. So in this question, if you are sending 400 packets over a, therefore it is 400 divided by 1 minus 0.2. So this is the answer. Okay, so you will get 400 divided by 0.8. I think you are going to get 500 packets here. 500 is the answer. Okay, so how did I do this? So depending on n and p, I derived this formula, and in that formula I am substituting it. Okay, so we shall see one more example next.